Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Lego Church. I'm so glad to be here this morning, and I hope you guys are too. I am enjoying my summer so far. I sure hope you guys are. I know the weather hasn't been that great so far. We're looking forward to some of that. I certainly am, and I know that it's coming. We're going to be able to have some great barbecues and squirt gun fights and playing in the pools and jumping around in the sprinkler and having all kinds of fun like that. I know the good weather's coming. I just hope that everybody is staying safe and healthy out there and is just having a great summer. So today, our story is going to be multiple stories, actually. We're going to look at several people in the Bible. Now, my topic today is about being young and maybe not being suited for a job, or being told that you're not the right person for something, or maybe somebody just thinking that you're not the right person for doing something. But really, you may be. There's several people in the Bible. In fact, just about everybody in the Bible that God picks is just not the normal person that you would think you would pick, or any normal person would pick for the job. God always seems to pick the person that, I guess is just not suited for the job in our eyes, but God always sees something in them that makes them suited for the job. Have you ever been told that maybe you're too little for something? Let's go check out a situation like that I found earlier today. It's pretty crazy. Hey, Sam, what do you think you're doing?
I was trying to make Mom's car fly. And also she laser by me putting laser guns on it.
No, dude, you are way too little to work on a car.
Yeah,
I don't know what that boy was thinking. I don't know. He's definitely too young to put laser beams and make on Mom's car and make it fly. Absolutely. But you know what? He is not too little to tell somebody about Jesus. You know, God always looks at what's on the inside of us and not what's on the outside. We tend to look at what's on the outside and we can't see what's on the inside of some people. God always sees what we're capable of, and He knows that we are capable of much more than we even think we're capable of. You should never let anybody tell you that you're too young, or you're too small, or you maybe talk too much. Talk too much. Let's go look at an example of that.
I haven't got to the Brutos yet, so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to get there yet. I feel like there's still way more power moons on the moon. I don't know what I'm missing. But there is a bunch of colored moons.
Okay.
That I haven't gotten at Princess Peach's part
Dude.
of the world.
Dude, you talk too much.
Well, yeah, I also am trying to get like way more food in Zelda. Like, there's so much food I could even make. I just don't know I just don't know where all recipes are.
I'm trying to read my book. You talk too much.
Yeah, well, I also love kittens and puppies and a lot of other stuff.
You talk too much.
I also wrote down paper to make a leaf.
Okay, you talk too much.
Ooh,
that boy talks a lot. But you know what? That could be a good thing. You know, we have an example in the Bible that I'm going to start with today of a guy that really couldn't talk very well at all. He didn't have the problem of talking too much. He kind of had a different way of speaking, and he pointed that out to God. And God just told him, you're going to do it, buddy. You can do it. God saw what was on the inside of him rather than the outside of him. Let's go take a look at that guy, and we'll read a little something in the Bible about him, and you'll be amazed. And there he is, Moses, an awesome man of God. He was just a shepherd, but God had great plans for him. All right, we all remember Moses, right? He was the one that God chose to lead his people out of captivity in Egypt. Moses was just a shepherd. And you know what? When God picked him to go and do this, this is when it happened at the burning bush. When Moses saw the burning bush that was not being consumed by the flame, and God spoke to him through that. Now, Moses gave God a lot of examples, and he didn't think that he was capable of this. In fact, in Exodus chapter 4, verse 10, let's look at what Moses says to God and God's response. Again, Exodus chapter 4 and verse 10. Moses said to the Lord, O Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. So Moses didn't think he was a very good talker. He couldn't talk to people. Here's what God said. The Lord said to him, Who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. How amazing is that? God didn't see any sort of defect in Moses that Moses saw in himself. God saw what Moses was capable of, and God was going to help him. God will always help us in anything that we do. So, Moses was slow of speech, but God used him anyway. Let's look at another example of that. And there is Joseph. Joseph, a young man. God had great plans for this young man. All right, Joseph. Joseph's one of my favorite characters in the Bible. Joseph grew up to be a great man, and God put him through a lot of stuff to turn him into this great man. He was sold into slavery by his brothers when he was young, and through those trials that he went through, he became the second in command in Egypt. Now, why was that important? That was important because at the time there was a famine in the land. God had given Pharaoh some dreams that Joseph interpreted with God's help, and they found out that there was a famine coming, which meant there wasn't going to be any food in the land. So Joseph was able to store food up with God's help and save the Israelites. The Israelites wound up coming to Joseph in this time of famine to get food from them, and this is what saved them. So Joseph started out as a young man. Let's go look at Genesis 37 and verse 1 and see what it says here. Joseph was a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now, at the time, Joseph was the youngest brother. He had 10 brothers that were older than him, and his father loved him a lot, and his brothers did not like him. He was in a bad situation there, but God used it for great things. Now, a lot of times you can be told that you're too young, just like Sam was too young to work on the car. But you know what? God took this young boy, who was only 17, and turned him into a great man to where he was able to rescue the Israelites from famine. All right, let's go look at another example of somebody in the Bible that maybe you wouldn't have picked, or I wouldn't have picked, but God did. And here we are with another amazing character of the Bible, a very young boy, Samuel. Yep, Samuel. Samuel was awesome. Samuel's so awesome, he's got 2 books of the Bible named after him. But Samuel was chosen by God when he was a young boy. His mother Hannah had dedicated him to the temple because she promised God that if she had a son, that she would dedicate him back to the Lord. So Samuel was living in the temple with Eli the priest. And here's what happened when Samuel was picked. He was just a young boy. Let's look in 1 Samuel chapter 3, verse 2. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli in those days. The word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. One night Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called to Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me?" But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So this happened a couple more times where Samuel was called and he thought that it was Eli that was calling him. Finally, Eli told him, "Hey, you know what? I think God's calling you. You just need to answer God." And so this is what happens. In verse 9, so Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." So Samuel was just a young boy, and once again, we would never think to pick a young boy to be a prophet of God like this. But you know what? You're never too young in God's eyes. You can do amazing things. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you're too young. All right, so let's go look at another character in the Bible who maybe we wouldn't have picked, but God did. And here we have yet another amazing person in the Bible that was also very young, that you would think would not have been chosen by anybody, but he was chosen by God. That is David. David did great things and was a man after God's own heart. David is an awesome example. Now, at the time, David was young, and Samuel, who we just talked about, is the prophet. And God tells Samuel that it is time to go and pick a new king of Israel because Saul just isn't working out. So he sends him to this man named Jesse who has many sons. And he tells Samuel that one of these sons I want you to anoint king. So let's pick the story up there in the Bible and see exactly what happens here when Samuel goes to pick the new king of Israel. We're going to look at 1 Samuel chapter 16 and verse number 6. This is when all the sons of Jesse arrives. So it says in verse 6, when they arrived, Samuel saw Eliab and thought, "Surely the Lord's anointed stands here before the Lord." But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Then Jesse called Abinadab and had him pass in front of Samuel. But Samuel said, "The Lord has not chosen this one either." Jesse then had Shammah pass by. But Samuel said, "Nor has the Lord chosen this one." Jesse had 7 of his sons pass before Samuel, but Samuel said to him, "The Lord has not chosen these." So he asked Jesse, "Are these all the sons you have?" "There is still the youngest," Jesse answered, "but he is tending the sheep." Samuel said, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." So he sent and had him brought in. He was ruddy, with a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, "Rise and anoint him. He is the one." Now, he wasn't the oldest son, which generally is who you pick to inherit and maybe be king. Nope, not in God's eyes. And he didn't pick the second son either. And all these guys were bigger than David was. But it was the youngest of the sons. David wasn't too young to be king. And right then and there, he was anointed the next king of Israel. How awesome is that? And we also know how amazing David was. David killed Goliath. He killed bears. He killed lions. David was amazing, and he had the heart of God. All right, let's go look at another person here in the Bible that shows that it doesn't matter what your appearance is or who you are, okay? And here's a guy in the Bible that you may not hear too much about. Another amazing character picked by God, who maybe we wouldn't have picked, but God saw greatness in him. His name is Gideon. The story of Gideon is very amazing, something that you should read in the Bible. All right, this guy's name is Gideon, and he is amazing as well. Now, Gideon was picked during a time in Israelites' history where they were being threatened by the Midianites. Now, the Midianites would come and just destroy their crops and take their food, and it was a horrible time. But you know what? God came and told Gideon that he was going to save his people. Let's go to Judges chapter 6, and we're going to look at verse 11. And this is how Gideon is picked. And listen carefully here. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash, the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Look at that. The angel of the Lord calls Gideon a mighty warrior as he is standing there threshing wheat. But sir, Gideon replied, if the Lord is with us, why has this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and put us into the hand of Midian. The Lord turned to him and said, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hands. Am I not sending you? But Lord, Gideon asked, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. The Lord answered, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites together. How about that? So the angel comes and tells him that he is a mighty warrior. Gideon doesn't think that, and I'm sure the people around him don't think that. Why? Because he is in the smallest clan, and he is considered the weakest of them. How awesome is that? God sees the inside, not the outside. So don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do something, because God sees what you have on the inside. And what you have on the inside is sometimes amazing. Sometimes we don't even know it's there until God helps us see that. All right, let's look at one more character here. One more character in the Bible that you would think wouldn't have been picked. And here is our last character that we're going to be talking about. An amazing woman of God. This is Esther. You should read the whole book of Esther. It's amazing, God's plans. Esther, another great example of a person in the Bible who God chose for greatness. Even though you would think that this person, nope, we wouldn't pick this person. Let's look at Esther chapter 2 and verse 7 to find out who Esther was. Okay, so in verse 7, it says here, Mordecai had a cousin named Hadassah, whom he had brought up because she had neither father nor mother. This girl, who was also known as Esther, was lovely in form and features, and Mordecai had taken her as his own daughter when her father and mother had died. So her father and mother had died, and Mordecai, her uncle, took her on as his daughter. She was an orphan. Now, Esther probably was in a lot of sorrow because her mother and father had died, but you know what? God had great plans for her. God knew that this would not hold her back. So at the time, Mordecai and Esther were living in a different land. The Israelites had been taken captive again, and King Xerxes was in command. Now Xerxes, he was a bad dude. He had decided that he was going to get rid of the wife that he had, got mad at her. And so he decided he was going to pick a new wife. So he had all the women in the land be brought before him, and he was going to pick his wife out of all those people. Well, guess who he picked? He picked Esther. And you know what? It was perfect timing, which of course is what God does, perfect timing, right? There was a bad guy in the land named Haman, and he wanted to get rid of all of the Israelites. And you know what? Since Esther was picked as queen, and she was Jewish, she was an Israelite, she put a stop to that and saved God's people once again. How awesome is that? That God picked Esther, an orphan, to save his people. Now, all these people that we have examples of today, you know what? We probably wouldn't have picked them to do anything just because of the different things that they had going against them. But you know what? God sees great things in all of us. As long as you follow God, He will guide you and direct you in everything you do. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't do something. With God's help, you can do great things. You can do great things for the kingdom of God. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Love you.